everyone, Joey here, aka Animus, and welcome to September's Throwback Thursday, where, at the request of my Instagram followers, I'm going to be reviewing the 9th studio album from Pink Floyd, released in 1975, Wish You Were Here. So I'm sure I don't need to give any background on legendary prog rock outfit Pink Floyd, but I don't think I can really discuss Wish You Were Here without at least mentioning their previous record, Dark Side of the Moon, which many people seem to regard as Pink Floyd's greatest work, or even the greatest album of all time, which means that a lot of you might be thinking, well, why aren't you reviewing that album, seeing as your theme for this month is albums from the 70s? And there are multiple reasons why I'm not doing that one. One, tons and tons and tons of people have talked about this thing, so I might not really add anything new at all that hasn't been said already. And secondly, I see this album, Wish You Were Here, as their greatest work. Not Dark Side of the Moon, this one. A few pieces of music on their previous LP had taken some inspiration from the feelings of the band after former guitarist Syd Barrett left due to his gradual mental deterioration. But after multiple years had passed and Barrett had seemingly fallen completely off the map, not communicating with his former band members or anyone they knew, that these feelings of grief and sympathy at his disconnect from reality as a of narcotics and depression really started to sink in, and they decided to dedicate an entire record to it. Well, in my opinion, they did. Some people seem to think that Shine On You Crazy Diamond is the only piece that's a tribute to Syd, but I think that this entire album is exploring various aspects of his life and their memories of him, and relating their experiences of disconnect with those of other people. Hence the title. The sheer grandiose of this project is awe-inspiring. 5 sprawling pieces of progressive rock filled with poetic storytelling, synth work, and epic, propulsive solos on a massive variety of instruments. It's a riveting emotional journey, and I can't wait to talk about it. The album opens with the first part of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, a title that actually has the word Syd hidden in it if you take the first letter of every other word. It's the most obvious tribute to the man you can find on the record. We open with a mysterious, almost orchestral drone and a synth that wouldn't sound out of place on a sci-fi soundtrack, before in comes this soft, soulful guitar noodling. This carries on for quite some time, really building the anticipation and atmosphere, before finally 4 massive, distorted, ominous notes come in, and at last the track explodes into action in one of the most chill-inducing musical moments I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. It's just so satisfying and emotionally climactic. Roger Waters comes in at around the 6-minute mark with his beautiful poetry that's not just mourning the absence of Syd Barrett, but willing him to shine on, as the title implies. And then there's an awesome sax solo from Dick Parry. Like, can this track get any better? As this grows in intensity, a beautiful haze of guitars slowly sinks in before a tempo change alters how they sync up with the beat. And finally, the entire thing fades out in a sea of reverb. Oh, and did I mention it's 13 minutes long? But by God, does it make the most of that time. Yes, there is a second part, I will get to that. Things take a turn for the dark with the next track, Welcome to the Machine, which begins with menacing mechanical electronic effects, before in come wailing vocals, discussing the machine-like music industry that contributed to Syd Barrett's mental collapse. This is a highly textured and detailed piece of music, with wind effects that wouldn't be out of place on Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygen, for example. These minor chords that sound like they're possibly played on an auto harp, and an awesome synth that replaces the vocals and propels the track into the stratosphere. It grips you and holds your attention for 7.5 minutes without a single steady kick drum. And yeah, it's another fantastic piece of music. Also very relatable even nearly 50 years later in 2020. How can the phrase "welcome to the machine" still not make sense to us with all of these streaming algorithms and people churning out masses of music to bring in as much money as possible to these massive corporations? This is continued on the third track, Have a Cigar, which is a bit less dark and epic feeling, has more of a similar vibe to Money off their last record. And while it's thematically a bit of a second part to Welcome to the Machine, the vocals, courtesy of Roy Harper, seem more optimistic and encouraging, though this is rather sarcastic because the track is being told from the point of view of a member of one of said corporations, talking to a band member about the amount of income they're going to get over the course of their career, riding the gravy train, while rather amusingly having a complete disregard for any other factors of the band. Oh, by the way, which one's Pink? And of course there's a super long, sexy Pink Floyd guitar solo at the end of this one as well. But after perhaps the most light-hearted cut on here, we get a griefful, emotionally devastating blow in the form of the ever-iconic title track, Wish You Were Here. As I mentioned earlier, the phrase "wish you were here" relates to the feeling of mental or physical disconnect, in this case Barrett, and the separation from reality that his band members saw in him. This is metaphorically shown in the intro, which starts with a tuning radio in your right ear before the opening of the track begins to play, and we hear the person listening to said radio playing an accompanying tune on their own guitar, with so many poetically sorrowful lines that I'm sure you'll be playing at least one over in your head even after one listen to the track. It's almost painful to listen to this track with its incentive in mind, and it's definitely one of the most emotionally poignant pieces of music the band have ever created, as well as just one of the best across the board. Then finally we reach the fifth and final track on Wish You Were Here, Shine On You Crazy Diamond Part 2. There's not all that much to discuss here after describing its counterpart, as it has many structural and tonal similarities, and lots of instrumental and vocal lines are even reprised. But it's executed just as well, and in fact some of the solos reach even further heights in part 1, to the point where you wonder how many frets are even left. Of course, it's also different in that it's tasked with finishing the album rather than opening it, and that it does brilliantly with its extended instrumental section towards the end rather than at the beginning. And finally, it all fades out into the distance. I knew that Wish You Were Here was nothing short of a masterpiece from the very first moment I heard it. Musically, it just seemed to go far beyond its contemporaries in almost every respect. But now that I've done further research into the background and meaning behind these pieces of music, it's just opened up a whole nother dimension to these 5 tracks. It's such an emotional roller coaster that it's been really quite challenging to talk about it on camera. And I've realised that there's absolutely nothing I can find to criticise about it, no matter how hard I look. Any time I think that I found something that is possibly a flaw, I then just think, no, that's way too much of a stretch to say that. Or there's something that means, no, that's actually fine. Like, what? Have a Cigar is a bit of a tonal shift. Yeah, so what? That adds a little bit of variety, and besides, the subject matter is still literally the same thing. It's just told in a sarcastic and vaguely humorous way. So I've come to the conclusion that there is no reason for me to give Wish You Were Here any other score than the first ever 10 out of 10 on this channel. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear what you think about Wish You Were Here, what your favourite Pink Floyd album is, if you agree with me or if you disagree with me. And thank you for watching. Animus out.